Hello, my name is Grace Morgan and I'm the director of Waterford Crystal.
And I'm Lisa. I wrote and I perform in Waterford Crystal. And I'm one of the co-founders of OXBO Theatre.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I was looking forward to the play and to meeting you both properly in Galway, but obviously such things can't happen this year. Tell me a little bit about OXBO for starters. Where did it come from? I love the name, but where did it come from? Who is OXBO and what does OXBO do?
OXBO was founded by myself and Jennifer Oust, who is an absolute queen of our lives. We met in college and we just kind of found ourselves naturally working together quite a bit, between like college work and then also like internships and general interests. We kind of found a gang that were recurring, kind of similar themes in a lot of our work, like stuff like the gals, playing with form, kind of multidisciplinary work. So we just kind of decided we might as well try use our knowledge of working together as a group to kind of make a theatre company that would kind of push those interests further. Rather than trying to like conform to what we already have, we might as well look at ways we can create a new space for kind of young, fresh theatre makers.
Great. So how long have you been in existence?
Since January 2019.
Okay, yeah. So you're young enough.
Yeah, but since then we've packed in a fair bit. We've done 2 works in progress and we brought a show to Prague Fringe. So
brilliant. Yeah, cool. And Grace, how did you become part of OXBO?
Yeah, so I also went to college with Jen and Lisa. And I suppose how I became involved with Waterford Crystal, so that's how we know each other, but how I became involved in Waterford Crystal was I think Lisa weren't we at a Fringe show, and it was just before the show started. Lisa turned to me and was like, so I have this idea about this play about a horse on drugs. And I was like, yeah, great, sounds cool, sign me up.
That's all
Grace used to always want to direct a play about Sugar going missing, and I was like, this is as close as I have.
Which leads us nicely into Waterford Crystal. Tell us a bit about the play. It sounds like a kind of a madcap adventure in some respects.
Yeah, Lisa, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's a story that I knew from growing up, and when I went to research it to try and explain it to someone, I just uncovered so much crap. I was like, oh my god, there's this insane amount of like detail and plotting and revenge in this. Like, why is it not a bigger deal, and why don't people talk about it? So I just kind of started writing about it, and then when Grace came on board, it became a little bit even more tapped. We added in like different multidisciplinary bits, like bits with film and bits with music and loads of different things, just to kind of create something that's a little bit different and kind of explore how we want to kind of tell stories as theatre makers.
Great. And initially I think as well, when Lisa told me the story, so like, because a lot of people I think don't realize they know the story once you tell it. So like when Lisa mentioned the horse Waterford Crystal, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then when she started telling me the story about how, the horse got tested positive for drugs, and then Connor lost his medal for the Olympics, I was like, I actually do remember that happening, but we were quite young when it happened. But it's funny because as the more research that we did into it and kind of the more crazy things we found out, we were both just kind of like, God, it's mad that like little snippets of these stories you remember as a child, and then when you start sitting down and looking at it as like a huge thing, just how like those kind of things go over your head, and how it's mad that it hasn't resurfaced at all, really, I don't think, since it happened. So yeah, now it is actually like a madcap adventure is a very good description for it. It is a bit of a madcap adventure. So it's a lot of fun. It's a little chaotic, in a good way. And yeah, as Lisa said, there's kind of like lots of kind of multidisciplinary bits in it too. So I suppose we kind of, where we were before everything happened, we were kind of just like hashing through the script. We actually started rehearsals for it, so we were having a lot of kind of chaotic fun in those, and just kind of working on the script, figuring out what we wanted it to look like, all those kind of fun things.
How many cast members are there in the play?
Just the one.
Just the one. Okay.
Yeah. And when we get the Arts Council grant, there'll be a real horse.
Yeah.
So we're trying.
I'm sure that's definitely what the Arts Council is concerned around in terms of paying the artist, you know, pay the artist. But if you have to have a real horse, like a real horse.
Yeah.
Although I suppose, given the new ways of making theatre, maybe making it in a stables outdoors would be an interesting way to do it, you know?
Yeah, and totally. And like, it's actually funny because when we were getting our like promotional material ready, we did it with a real horse. So God bless my cousin, bless her. She literally, like, she just had a baby, and then I was like, any chance we can use your horse for a photo shoot? So up we went on an adventure, like up the Dublin Mountains to her stables to meet Oreo, the lovely horse who we used in the end. So maybe Oreo will make a real life appearance someday.
Yeah. And are you either of you or both of you actually, like, are you interested in horse racing and horse riding, or is it just the adventure of the story is enough?
I'm definitely not a horse rider at all. Like, my family would be quite into horse racing, so you know, it would have been on and stuff like when I was a kid, but it's not, you know, I was never like a big horse gal.
Yeah.
I feel like I was definitely a wannabe horse girl. Like, I had like one foot in the door of like the stable. Like, I definitely wanted to be that cool person who knew what I was doing all the time, but I really didn't have a clue. I just kind of found it fun in the end, so I kind of stuck at horse riding for a while, and then I suppose that's kind of the only way I kind of know about it.
Yeah, cool. So a madcap horse adventure, potentially with a real horse. Watch this space. That's what we're looking at.
Now the rubber horse mask will do.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a start.
Yeah. Dream big.
Yeah. Sounds great. So tell me a bit, like, how did you get to theatre? What's the thing that drew you in to trying to create and make and be professional theatre makers?
Yeah, so I suppose basically, like, I've done drama classes like since I was, you know, really young, but I think I started them when I was like 3, and the reason I started them was because I was quite a quiet child, and before I started school, my granny said to my mum, she was like, she's too quiet, she's not going to make any friends in school, you need to put her into drama classes. And in I went, and they did work, you know. I talk a bit now. So yeah, and then I just stuck at it. So I think it was one of those things that I'm not sporty, so I never did any kind of sports things. It was always like drama was the one thing that I went back to every year. So yeah, and then I suppose, like, in secondary school, I think that's a big tester for people. If you stick at it in secondary school, it normally means, you know, you're normally there for the long run, I think. So yeah, so I kept it up, and then just knew that I wanted to do it in college, and then that's kind of how I ended up there. Yeah, so that's my little story.
Such a niche little narrative. I love it. I'm like, I don't know how I ended up here. I really don't. Like, I had no interest really in drama growing up at all. Like, I always thought I was going to be a vet. I was like either that or like an international spy was my top two.
Great, yeah.
Fortunately, you can't really be an international spy with an Irish passport. They're mostly Americans, or like vague Europeans. So I was like, well, that's out the window. So I fully went into secondary school most of the way through it, volunteering with animal shelters and stuff, because I was like, well, I'm going to be a vet. And then I know something just clicked. I think I did a musical outside school when I was in transition year, and that was really one of my only experiences with drama, but I just kind of went for it. And when I got offered the course, I was like, well, I'll just take it. So
God, I can't believe you wanted to be a vet. I never knew that.
Yeah, my secret dream.
Wow.
Well, look, if you do end up working with a real life horse on stage, you're kind of bringing both of your dreams together. I'm not sure what we can do about the international spy, but
no,
somehow, you know,
we can make
deadline.
We can work it out.
One of the things that I find really interesting talking to people, theatre people, is everybody, I think, has a different thing that is their real reason, the kind of the kernel of the excitement and the joy and the passion, and the moment when you're in a theatre, either rehearsing or preparing for a show or performing the show or afterwards. There's a moment for everyone, I think, that is, this is it, this is why I do it. So for me, that's well, there's so many moments, but one of them for me is when you're sitting in an audience, particularly with a play that kind of has activity on stage before the play starts itself, and you can feel this kind of energy in the audience. And there's a moment where the audience decides that the play is about to start without any signposting, any, you know, direction. The audience goes quiet. I'm even getting goosebumps thinking of it now.
Oh my
And
God.
then on comes the kind of the magic starts then. And it's different. I've gone to plays 3 nights in a row, and that moment is always different depending on the audience. So for me, that's one of the goosebump moments. Do you have like goosebump moments that really are kind of the secret why, or the thing that really drives you going through?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. There's
I'm
just
putting you on the spot now a little bit.
I know. Just
I feel like I fully have a list of them in my head. Like
Great,
it's kind of creepy. Well, like I love being completely overwhelmed. I feel like as a person, like I don't find anything insane anymore. Like I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. What about almost everything? And then sometimes you're like experiencing live theater and you'll just like feel this weird feeling inside you that you're going to cry. I usually get it like when people sing, or like there's something really like at the end of Swan Lake by Michael Keaton, and I was just like, that's me gone. I'm just crying now for days. Or like sometimes in musical theatre, when like in particular points I will just cry, and it's just like I'm not particularly like, I'm just overwhelmed by everything. There's no like sadness attached to the crying. I'm just like, whoa. Which is why I think that would make me come back and do it again, because I'm like, I want to make experiences that make people feel something, maybe not that extreme, but like I'm like, oh, I want to make people feel something. So I suppose that's a reason behind keeping on doing it.
God, mine is like, I don't know, I feel like my big one that I love is just well, firstly, I am mad for a surprise design moment. I'm always here for it. I love it, and it just makes me so happy. You know, so I do love, I'm kind of like, one of those people that I just love any element of surprise. Like I remember hearing once that I think it was like a friend of mine, some lecturer they had in college said, you know, when you're making shows, you should try and have 16 surprises a minute. And I'm just like, that would just be, as an audience member, that must be the most riveting thing to sit through, if anyone can achieve that, you know? So like something like that, I think for me is really important to give to audience members as well. Just like tiny elements of surprise just kind of trickle throughout. I think then like during the process, I love tech, like I absolutely love it, and most people hate it, but I absolutely adore tech, and I just love it when everyone's in the room together and you start seeing it all for the first time. Like that for me is so exciting. And when you
because that's really the moment when things start to go from this is the rehearsal room to it's the transition between rehearsal room to audience. The kind of the teching beforehand. And
when you know those conversations then start to appear in front of you. Like I love that. And I think for me that's really exciting. But also that moment you said about when the audience just go quiet by themselves. That it's just so mad how that happens, and you're like, what? How does that happen? It's so strange. I absolutely love that as well. It is mad, and you do kind of miss it now, don't you? Can't wait to
and it's one of the things that I've really enjoyed with these conversations and the artist profiles we're doing is that I get to kind of it's selfish of me, but I get to hold on to those moments of art. You know, these conversations are about art. They're about why we do it, what we're doing. And it is a little half hour and oasis in the week where we're kind of reconnecting to that which we want to do, you know, because we have been so quickly and firmly divorced from our colleagues, our peers, our audience members. So it is nice to kind of just almost check in and say, there's a reason why we're doing this. What is it again?
No, you're so right. Like it is so nice just having that chance, because you do forget. Like it's so, because even, you know, we were just saying recently, like it's the rehearsals we had, you know, when we started in February, I was like, that feels like months ago. And you're kind of wondering if we do that again, it's like, will any of us even remember how that works? You know, like how we go about even planning a rehearsal, it's mad. So it is nice to be able to kind of still have those conversations and like remember that we can. It's just like riding a bike. We can do it. You know.
Yeah, well, hopefully, or riding a horse, maybe.
Riding a horse.
Back around, yeah.
True.
So, are there plans for OXBO and Waterford Crystal, or has everything kind of gone on hold? Is it frozen for the moment?
Well, no, it's actually not entirely frozen. So we do have plans for Waterford Crystal, that we're kind of like tapping away at the moment. So hopefully we will see it like in the next couple of months when we can. Which is good. So yeah, so that's kind of a nice promising thing that we do have a chance that it will happen, which is great.
I think it's definitely suited to this current situation. It's like such a small, like physically it's a small show, like we can kind of put it up and kind of fix it to whatever the space or the social distancing requirements do come up. But also it's a laugh, like you're not gonna come out and feel like crap hopefully by the end of it. So I feel like that's what people are kind of looking for. They're looking for something that's thought-provoking, that's like a little bit different, that you can't get over like a Zoom play or like a play going online. So hopefully we'll be able to offer that sometime soon.
And it's a bit of nostalgia because it's 2004, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny because you were thinking about that recently as well, how now we're all so nostalgic, you know, like for times that were, and it's just like, God, obviously this was a nostalgic piece before, but now it's even more nostalgic. And I think that kind of, I think people are obviously drawn in times of uncertainty to those stable stories that have lots of facts, and you know that you recognize the faces, and you know all those kind of things, like, and also it is quite an Irish story as well, and I think there's an element of comfort in that, particularly how outrageous and ridiculous it is. You know, it's only something that would happen in Ireland. You know, it's one of those things that like this only would happen in Ireland. Like no other country in the world where something as mad as this happened. So I think it is quite nice having that like nice stable element of it as well.
Reeling in the years vibes.
Yeah, very reeling in the years.
How did you find the research element of it actually? Like how much of it is factual, or is it kind of factual but with a bit of artistic license in there? You know, what is the basis of it in terms of research?
So the character itself, the character of the girl is fictional, but the story is all real. Almost all of the quotes used to describe what was happening are all actually from newspaper articles or like TV reports on what was going on. So like they're kind of to the T factual. Kind of went in a bit of a deep dive and read some like autobiographies and stuff. So like sometimes the deeper you go, the more things make less sense. So I think this project made the most sense like maybe in November, because like we hadn't gone so deep that it was confusing. But now like once people are like, well, this is my side of the story, it obviously gets skewed because there's so many sides. So yeah, it was like a lot of intensive research, and obviously when there's so many voices involved, you have to take everything with a tiny pinch of salt, but everything that is said in it is kind of the most factual we can get it to. So mostly newspapers, RTE, public statements,
public statements, there's lots of them.
Occasional lawyers, old guys they interview for the television, you know, that sort of stuff.
Neighbours,
yes, granny and granddad, mom and dad, that sort of, as close as we can to getting the complete story is what we've tried to do, but obviously you never really know with these sort of things.
And also there still isn't a complete story, like no one still knows what happens. So it's one of those things where it's still very much unresolved.
Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield.
Yeah, literally. It is.
Another bit of nostalgia there. Yeah, but I'd say that allows for a lot of like the kind of the depth of information, and obviously there's a lot of information both through kind of newspaper, etc., all the things you've listed there, some of which is factual and some of which presumably is, you know, from various opinion pieces and that kind of thing, so from different points of view. But also the uncertainty and the lack of resolution, I would imagine, allows for a really rich creative ground somewhere in between fact and fiction, you know, the known and the unknown, and then you're putting in this fictional character to a factual story, a story that a lot of us will remember. Like I remember the whole kind of process of it, and reading about the play and reading the blurb of the play and everything just brought it all back. And the, you know, how you kind of hear it on the news and go, wait, what's happened now?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
all of that kind of, it sounds like a really rich place to be crafting a play from.
Totally, yeah. I think like, and I don't know about you, Lisa, but definitely so the draft we have now was quite different to the first draft, in the sense that I think the work in progress we did and Seen and Heard originally was more focused on the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
And now this version is definitely more about Girl and her journey through this story in finding, you know, like basically in realizing that it is possible for your dreams to be crushed at the age of 10. You know, it is possible that your hero is not going to be your hero forever.
Yeah.
And and I think exactly what you said, it gave us such a rich place to be able to do that, because the story is so chaotic and unresolved. But yeah, I don't know what you thought about that as well, Lisa, if that was kind of how you found revisiting it with that.
Yeah, I think as well, when you kind of strip it back, there is so many specific influences on it. Like obviously there's like the horse side of things, but also like there's the context of it being during the Celtic Tiger, and there's like so many layers that we kind of incorporated through like different bits of like movement or particular things that we would pull into the show itself. You can kind of see them when you pick them apart. Like there's a whole section where Girl is kind of sitting on a bench reading a newspaper, but she's not physically reading the newspaper. She's like squinting, looking into the distance, and it's kind of like, this is like an old man trying to read the newspaper in the pub. Like it's kind of, it's funny when you look back on what we were doing in the context of the grand scheme of things, and you're like, oh God, we got a lot of influences into one kind of quite short and tight piece. You look at the overall project.
Yeah. And it's just funny, even just watching that, like how it did kind of just change to being, almost like a Bildungsroman. Roman. It's like a coming of age story almost now. You know, where this event is kind of, it's just driving her growth like into being a teenager. So it was funny just how it changed the more research we did.
Because the story dragged out so long. Like it was on for like well into the end of 2015 before anything was resolved, or not 2005. It was like over a year and a half before there was any sort of hearing. So you're like, when you're young, that time is so much time. So I think it was good that we picked like a really young protagonist to kind of highlight how much change had happened both in a person while the story was playing out.
And a year and a half worth of newspaper reports and opinion pieces, etc., to draw on.
To scroll through.
It sounds like a lot of fun in the making of it, as much as in the watching and performing of it.
Yeah, we did have a lot of fun, I think.
Well, the rest of the team is great as well. Like they're all so fun. Like they'll come into the room and you're like, what sort of weird opinion must you think of what we've been doing? And they always add something insane, which is just brilliant.
We're very fortunate that it is quite a collaborative team. So anytime anyone does come in, it's very much like an open discussion as to, I think the big one was just like, do you actually understand what's happening? Have we gone too mad?
Grace Morgan's favourite directorial question. Does this make sense?
You know, but like, as in, because we just spend so long together in the room for like maybe 2 weeks, and no one would come in, like, you know, we'd have no one else in. So then, you know, yourself, you're just like stuck in your own little kind of mad world, and you can't see the wood from the trees. So anytime you did have someone in, we were like, we need to make sure that this is not completely off the wall.
There's too much more speak. What's happening?
So no, it was really nice having the team available to come in, and also as well, they're all exceptionally good at what they do. So it was so nice having that support as well.
So does OXBO work with the same kind of crew regularly? Do you have a team, kind of a core team that you call on, or how does OXBO work? Do you open it up to kind of strangers or new people every time you make a production? What's your
it's not necessarily kind of the same crew all the time. We do have a few people who we've worked with more than once, which is quite nice, because you do get a feel for how they work on different projects and stuff. But I think it's kind of what's best for the show is what we'll end up going with. We've been really lucky. Like one of the big things we really wanted to do was like get good scripts and jobs, especially for like young female theatre makers who might just be coming out of college. So like be they performers or like designers, it is nice to provide something like a little bit challenging to someone and like kind of get them kind of prompted on whatever they kind of want to make in the future, because we're quite like chill. We're like, if you want to do this thing, go wild and do this thing. Like with Water for Crystal design, I don't think we ever pictured exactly what we thought it was until we started talking about it, and then like it just got bigger and weirder and more colorful and more noisy. So yeah, we don't really have the exact same people we work with all the time, but there's definitely a few people who've worked with us more than once. But yeah, it's the right people for the job rather than the same people all the time.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll take me back for the next one, you know.
Better, Chris.
Well, if you do manage to get a live horse on stage, you know, that's a pretty big coup. So
that's a job for life.
Yeah, I think so.
Horses are for life, not just for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just for one production. Yeah. I'm now imagining, you know, touring with the horse box around Ireland. Like in some ways it would be very useful, you know. You can have a two horse box and have half of it be your dressing room or your sets or whatever, and then the other half be your horse.
Lisa in one and the horse in the other.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah, it's the new way to do it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of boxes.
Yeah. Great. Well, I've had a great time chatting to you.
Yeah, so we.
It's really nice to meet you both virtually for now.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing Waterford Crystal with or without the real horse in the near future, hopefully. And I'm excited to see what OXBO comes up with next. We have you've sent us some fun kind of 2004 throwbacks and snippets and pieces to share of Waterford Crystal. So we'll be doing that over the next week. And I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
So much. Thanks, Emil.